Oh, hi everyone, Tranthony Centano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Okonkolo album, Cantos. This is the debut full-length album from Okonkolo, a New York-based group with Afro-Cuban and Yoruban roots. And even though the group itself may be relatively new, it does feature veteran musicians who have been playing Latin music for quite a while, and are also adherents to the SANTERIA religion. I don't usually dive that deeply into the religious background of the musicians that I cover on this channel, however this was kind of a special case, as the songs on this album are very much an exercise in the Santerian faith. Not just because of the lyrics on the album and the call and response chants used throughout this record too, but also because of the prominence of bata drums on this record as well. A hand drum which has a long history of use in religious practices and goes beyond just a musical tool. As in an interview, bandleader Abraham Rodriguez describes his entrance into the Santeria religion with a ceremony where it needed to be seen whether or not the spirit of the drum accepted him as his son. So the vocal and drumming style central to the religious practices that I've been talking about are very much central to the music on this record pretty much throughout, with some occasional moments where the band might pick up the pace, pick up the groove, and add in some more accessible Latin music passages. Still though, even in its catchiest moments, the religious angle of this record cannot be ignored. It is very prevalent. Even the title of this album, Cantos, can be interpreted to mean chants in a religious context. But the recordings on this album are arranged in such a way where they can be enjoyed pretty easily outside of the purview of religion. As producer and musician Jacob Plass, who collaborated with the band on this record, brings in tons of guitar, bass, strings, brass, reeds to really color the band's vocals and drums. And the instrumental additions to the chants and rhythms on this record are actually pretty tasteful and powerful, and only help the band's already entrancing sound become even more transcendental. The drumming on this thing, for the most part, is fantastic. You're talking about a group of people playing hand drums. It is the most organic a groove can get. It's so natural, it flows so beautifully. This album has groove. And the vocals on this thing are equally impressive, especially when they're being delivered by the group's two female singers, Amma McKen and Jadelle McPherson. The lead vocal that opens up the track Oba is absolutely stunning. Maybe one of the most stunning moments on the entire record. It's soul-shocking. It sounds like I'm listening to a ghost sing a beautiful song of loneliness from another dimension. Some of the background vocals feel a bit off, but I think their slightly sour demeanor only adds to the character of the track and the forlorn attitude of some of the vocal passages. Meanwhile, Jacob's arrangements on the track are ever shifting. From strings to reeds to guitar and bass, it never really settles into one idea for too long. He's always throwing things and swapping stuff out given whatever the emotional tone of the vocals and the drums are. As the instruments he places on the very moody intro contrast pretty boldly from the groovier moments on the back end of the track, which is one of many amazing instrumental transitions throughout the album. The song OCHUN, for example, goes from beautifully tragic to full-on Latin dance section with sparkly guitars and funky horns in its final moments. And the track Canto ASOYIN sounds strangely sassy. There's something kind of joyous and smiley and playful about the call and response vocals on this specific track, not to mention the fat swinging horn lines that play throughout a good deal of the cut sound like something out of an old R&B song. And no, I don't mean like an old school 80s or 90s contemporary R&B song. I mean like from the 50s, like rhythm and blues. But suddenly the track is thrown into these darker and chillier vocal lines that get a touch of wintry atmosphere from the backing instrumentation. The mood transitions on this record are so fantastic. It's like Jacob and the group really pull the rug out from under you, but in a pretty thrilling way much of the time. Especially with the creative layers of vocals and horns that the track eventually evolves into. I wish more songs on this album unfolded this intricately, or subtly, like in the case of the gentle and intoxicating Obatala. And the track Canto por OCHUN is one of the most chillingly beautiful spots on the entire record too. The song sounds like a grand pilgrimage across the astral plane, with the vocals and the drums kind of setting the pace. The ethereal and swelling tones that Jacob places into the background add to the grandness of the musical presentation, and the track feels larger and larger as it progresses forward, despite the very humble bass line of drums and vocals. Now, there are some downsides to the songs on this album, unfortunately. I do think that sometimes the arrangements, the vocals, and the drums almost feel like they are coming from different places, kind of like the extra bits of strings or synths or ethereal effects just feel a little tacked on, just kind of coloring on top of what the vocals and drums are doing, as opposed to being integrated with them. For example, the soaring string sections on Abraham's voice on the track Walenche Porchango feel less like a religious experience and more like musical theater. And given that what we're being presented with here are religious chants and not pop tunes, some of the structures aren't all that traditional or predictable. So some of the transitions and finishes of these tracks come off a bit awkward or super abrupt. For example, the opening track, YEMAYA, has one of the most dramatic intros on the entire album, sets the tone of the record beautifully. The drum and vocal progressions on this track are fire. Eventually, the track reaches a point where it is met with these shimmery, either string or synth sounds that are really beautiful, otherworldly. The pace gets faster and faster. Some very dramatic woodwinds are introduced to enhance the chord changes. But then all of a sudden, the track just stops. It ends super suddenly, mid-progression. It's just over like that. It's like the track just literally evaporates, or the rapture took it away, as it was just in the midst of building up to what I do not know. Meanwhile, the track Canto por OBATALA seems like a pretty straightforward chant with some little woodwind and horn sections to kind of enhance the spots in between the vocals. I won't deny that the singing is nice and the instrumental melodies are pretty mystical, but the song doesn't really build up toward anything. It's a lot of tension, but not a whole lot of ascension. The closing track, in my opinion, trails off very much at its finish, and a lot of the progressions up until that point feel a little random and don't really build up a whole lot of momentum. Even though it does sound pretty, despite the fact that some of the opening vocals are a little rough, it's kind of like hitting the reset button numerous times on the track as it transitions from one idea to the next. It's like everything that it's been building up to that point just crumbles and it starts anew. And I do not mean that in a way that improves or enhances the song all that much. Still though, I enjoyed this record quite a bit. It's 9 tracks, it's 34 minutes, it's pretty tight, it's sweet on the ears, it's beautiful. As I said, there is a transcendental quality to it, a haunting quality to the religious chants, the drumming, and the gorgeous arrangements. I see this album as a beautiful little spiritual oasis that I just did not see coming, and I'm really happy entered into my life. I wish some of the tracks on this thing were a bit longer or made grander musical statements, but as short as some of these songs and this album are, this thing is packed with powerful performances, flavorful instrumentation, lots of intense emotions, some thrilling twists and progressions too. I'm feeling a strong 6 to a light 7 on this thing. Tran. Zishin, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Okonkolo, forever.